During COVID, many of us started new hobbies. Maybe you learned how to play piano, picked up hiking, or spent way too much money on Legos. In today's episode, we're going to hear how one teacher turned her boredom into a side hustle that now makes up to $2,000 a day, all from skills that she picked up during the lockdowns. So let's get to it. This is After School Empire, the podcast that helps teachers like you make extra money by launching and growing their own income-generating side hustles. My name is Tony Neely. I'm a veteran teacher and a lifelong serial side hustler. Through one-on-one coaching and leading school-wide professional development workshops, I've helped many teachers launch their side hustles. And now, it's your turn. So grab a notebook and your favorite pen, because today is the day we start building your after-school empire. Welcome to another episode of After School Empire. As always, I'm your host, Tony Neely. And with me today, we have Kristen von Glahn of Lambie Cakes Clay. Kristen, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
I really appreciate you taking the time. I know summers are precious for teachers. We were both talking before we just came back from vacations. We both had some hiccups, but I appreciate you taking time to hang out this morning.
Oh, yeah. I like to be busy. I know some teachers love teacher summer, but I love schedule. I love routine. So having something on my calendar today just made me really excited.
I always say I would rather be busy than bored, and that's probably, I blame my ADHD for it, but that's probably why I'm running 5 to 7 side hustles at a time, is because I have to be doing something. I can't just sit still.
I agree.
So tell us a little bit about what you do in education.
Sure. Well, this is my 12th year in education. I started my career as a kindergarten teacher. There is a special place in heaven, I believe, reserved for kindergarten teachers. I really thought I couldn't continue on after 2.5 years because it's so hard. So shout out to all of you guys that are in kindergarten.
Yeah, my son's about to go to kindergarten. We're like, may the Lord be with them and keep them, make his light shine upon them, because...
Yeah. I applied at the time. There was a grant called the Teacher Help Grant. And the grant was about certifying ESL teachers, or ESOL. I believe the name has changed for what they're called now. But I taught English as a second language through that grant. And so I did that for 5 years. And I absolutely loved working with kids that were learning English as a second or third language. Oftentimes it is more than just their second language. And then I worked in a middle school for a while teaching English. And then I made the switch about 4 years ago. This will be my 5th year teaching 4th grade at a private school. And I absolutely love it. I teach in Chattanooga, Tennessee at the Bright School. My school community is very supportive of my side hustle, and I'm really appreciative of that too. But yeah, that's what I do.
So speaking of your side hustle, tell us a little bit about what you do. What is Lambie Cakes Clay?
Lambie Cakes Clay is a polymer clay jewelry business that I started about 4 years ago. I sell at local markets. I have a setup at a local store. I'm working on getting an online platform available. But yeah, I make polymer clay earrings.
That's awesome. I definitely want to get into the process of that. But let's get into a little bit of the origin. So I know you said you started out in a position that was grant funded, which is always scary. If anybody listening's never been part of the nonprofit world or in a grant funded position, you're definitely living and breathing based off of other people's willingness to fund your existence. So why did you start a side hustle?
Well, I was teaching English in an inner city at the start of the pandemic. And we all remember what teaching during the pandemic was like. We were in uncharted territory. And I'm a people person, and I honestly hate being alone. Like we were talking earlier, I don't like being bored. And I was used to being in a classroom with 27 to 32 kids a day. And suddenly I'm home alone all day, every day. My husband works in healthcare, and he never missed a day of work. He was in the trenches. And so I was alone. I was bored. The students in my school where I was teaching didn't have access to computers or the internet right away. My school and EPB here in town did a phenomenal job trying to reach the kids, but it was a big struggle at first. Most of the parents of my kid worked second or third shift. So it was hard to get the kids online to Zoom in for class. And also, those kids became caretakers to younger siblings, most of them. So everyone was just trying to survive. Like we were
Yeah.
just trying to do our best.
Yeah, we have the same experience at our school. I teach at a Title I school, and like you said, our students were definitely spending more time taking care of siblings and actually engaging in the learning process during that
Right.
time.
Yeah. And it's not that they didn't want to. Like my kids cared deeply about their education, but it was just what was happening in the world. It was just what was going on. It was just impossible for them. So I was logging into these empty Zoom meetings with 0 kids and feeling like, honestly, just very depressed. And I knew I needed to do something to keep my mind busy because just being in that empty, alone space wasn't good for my mental health. So I, in all of our mindless scrolling that we do, on doom scroll on Instagram or TikTok, I saw polymer clay and people playing with it. And I thought, that is something I could do. Like I could just order some clay and just play with it. Like I'm in a Zoom meeting anyway. It's something I'm doing with my hands. Like, let me try. So I made some earrings. They weren't very good, but I was really proud of them. Like it was something new. I posted a picture online of me wearing them, and suddenly I was getting messages. Can you make me some earrings? Like, I'd love to buy these from you.
Isn't it beautiful when it works that way? I
Yeah.
I started a organic beard care company when I was in grad school called Bearded Saints,
I was
and
like,
it was the same thing. It was like some of my friends at church were like, "Dude, your beard is looking like on point." And I was like, "Oh yeah, I've just been making this stuff." And they were like, "Can I buy some?" And I was like,
yeah.
"Okay, all right, yeah, we can definitely arrange that."
Yeah. So I started watching video after video after video on Instagram or YouTube, and I just taught myself. I just did a lot of researching and watched, as much as I could. I read online reviews of different tools that I wanted to buy. And suddenly I had a business. Like I wasn't planning on it, but I had a business.
So at what point did you realize that this was going to be more than a hobby where you're just selling a few pairs one off to friends on social media to actually becoming a viable business?
Oh man, I don't know if I know exactly when. I guess when, just more and more people started messaging me, and I talked to my husband and I was like, I think I could do this. Like I think I can set this up and make this legit. And he really wanted me to explore that and like be a legit business. He was really concerned about like, all right, you got to do this the right way. Like, let's get you set up with a tax ID. Let's get you moving and
Isn't it
shaking.
nice having a spouse who's supportive of our side hustles?
For sure. Yes. And, I think it's really important to have financial freedom, especially for young women. Trigger warning, I am a survivor of domestic abuse, and I never thought I'd get remarried after what I lived through. And I met Ross, and he's wonderful. Like we said, he's so supportive. I fell in love with him, and he showed me what it truly means to be loved and cared for. And when we started, you know, this business, like I couldn't have done it without him.
Yeah, my wife Andy, she's a college professor, and so she understands the grind of being a teacher as well. And I can't think of a single time that she's ever said no when I've come to her with a side hustle idea.
Yeah.
There, when you know that your family supports your side hustle endeavors, it kind of gives you more of that freedom to dive in, see just how far this rabbit trail can go.
Yeah. Yeah. And he's with me at every event. Like he helps me set up. He became a market husband, just what we joke.
Nice.
He's fully there. Yeah.
So you decide after talking with him, hey, I think that I can make a go at this. I know you told me that you do most of your selling at market. So do you remember what led you to set up at that first market and what was that experience like?
Oh my gosh. Yes. So I did wait about, I don't know, probably 8 months to a year before I did my first market. I really wanted to make sure that one, what I was going to introduce like my brand as or my to the public, I wanted it to be quality. I didn't want to go out there and then, sell I didn't know what I was anticipating, but let's just say like my sell 25 earrings and then 25 people come back angry at me that they were broken or,
Hmm.
I didn't want that to be the experience. I really wanted to make sure that when I introduced myself out there, that I knew that what I was giving people was good. So by the time I was ready for the market, I was really proud of what I was doing. I was excited. I had a plan. I had the aesthetic that I wanted out there. And I remember that first day, we sold probably $1,500 in earrings in that one day. And he looked at me and he was like, good job, babe. Like, we did it, like like so proud of me, and it
So
was
what
just,
was your goal going in? Do you remember what you had said?
well,
Hey, if I make X amount, then that will be, you know, assigned to me that this is worth keep going.
I mean, I would have been happy with a couple $100, you know? And when I passed that $1,000 mark, I mean, probably within the first couple hours, I was like, okay, this is real. This is gonna change my life, basically.
Hey there. I really hope you're enjoying this episode of After School Empire. If you're gaining any benefit from this podcast at all, could I ask you to do one thing? Please take a moment and share it with other teachers. Just a simple social media post or text message to a colleague not only helps this show keep growing, but can also be the first step in helping a friend that you care about learn how to gain more financial independence by launching and growing their own side hustle. Thanks so much. Now back to the show. I mean, making $1,500 on a random Saturday morning, I mean, for especially a lot of younger teachers, that's 2/3 of your monthly paycheck, your
Yeah.
take home. So you do well at the market. What happens after that?
Oh, I mean, it was 4 years ago. I'm trying to think. I mean, probably just me going home and thinking, "Oh my god, I have a ton more earrings to make."
Yeah.
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 Um,
No, absolutely. Like I said, I remember with Bearded Saints, after I made my first small batch and it sold out, I decided to put them up on Etsy after I'd been selling some of my friends. And my first small batch of, I think, 20 bottles sold out in like a day on Etsy. And it was the same thing. It was like kind of like the whole Jaws thing. We're going to need a bigger boat. And it's
yeah.
like, okay, so now we start talking about scaling. So walk us through a little bit of the process. You don't have to give us step by step, but when you're saying polymer clay earrings, you go from a lump of clay to a final product. So can you walk us through what that looks like and tell us a little bit about like the amount of time that goes into a single pair?
Oh, sure. In my process, I kind of have a vision for a collection. Like, what do I want this whole to look like instead of the part? My aesthetic is very Art Deco. I want not just one pair of earrings to be there and have a moment. Like, I want the whole thing to fit in well with the display. So everything flows. I get a lot of compliments on my display.
Did you design the display first and then start changing the way you made earrings to match, or did you make the display kind of based off of some of those early prototypes that you had?
Good question. I think being a teacher, it was very planned out and very strategic.
Mhm.
So I had my classroom is set up. I'm a reading teacher, and my bins in my classroom are set up in rainbow order. And when I went in to this display, it's this wooden stand and it's got layers, just like my bookshelf in my classroom. I kind of thought of the display of my bookshelf and that rainbow order. And so I started making the earrings in rainbow order, darkest to light. They're pastels. So
Okay.
that kind of inspired me to kind of continue that on, like just a pastel rainbow on my display.
Gotcha. So you come up with the pastel rainbow idea that kind of maps out to match your display. And so you start making the earrings. And so I'm assuming that are you buying your clay locally or are you ordering it online? Do you have a set wholesaler or retailer that you have an established relationship with?
Yeah, I buy online and there is a retailer that I use. Depending, Play became really popular a couple of years ago, like during the pandemic, and it was really hard to find. So I found someone that I use, and But, she might be sold out of a color that I need, and then I'll have to go, somewhere else online and find. It becomes kind of like, Pokemon cards where you're searching at all hours of the night trying to find
Clay, gotta catch them
colors
all.
you need. Yeah. But all the colors that I use or that are on my display, I color mix. So you can't buy clay in the colors of earrings that I make. I have to make the clay color first, if that makes sense. So I use
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and I'm sure that's something that makes you stand out. I'm sure people say, "Oh, I've never seen earrings in these colors before." You're like,
yeah,
"Yeah, because that's a Lambie cake special."
right. Yeah, it's all color mixed. So to go back to the question of what's my process, I definitely kind of plan out, well, okay, if I'm in a rainbow, I've got to get from point A to point B in the rainbow. We're all pastels. So I'm going to color mix first to get the color that I want. I've got to get the clay rolled out in my Polymer machine to get it nice and flat. Depending on the design, it's got to be a certain thickness. Otherwise, it'll stick to the cutter. I use cutters, which are kind of like a cookie cutter, but they're
Okay.
colored.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if you were using cutters or molds or how you were getting your shapes to
Yeah.
stay uniform.
Yeah, it's like a little cookie cutter. And then cornstarch is involved. So you dip the little cookie cutter clay cutter into the cornstarch so that it doesn't stick. And then you press and then transfer it onto a tile, like kind of like a floor tile, like a
Mhm.
ceramic. And then I layer paper and then little tiny tiles to keep the clay flat so that it doesn't get air bubbles. And then bake it for an hour. And each batch that I make, I get about 15 to 20 pairs of earrings. And it takes me anywhere from probably 2 to 4 hours to make those 15 to 20 pairs. And then another probably 2 to 3 hours to sand them. I sand each edge using a Dremel. My husband helps me. He does most of the sanding. And then I use a Dremel as well to drill the holes for the earring findings and then assemble everything.
Gotcha. So several hour process to make them, but you're getting 15 to 20 pairs at a time. When you're counting in the the assembly hardware, your clay, your mixing stuff, about how much do you have per unit that you're spending to make a pair of earrings?
Oh man. The clay is about $2.65 for a brick. It probably takes about 3 bricks to make those 20 pair.
Mhm.
And then it depends on the findings that I use. Some of my, I mean, all my earrings I consider mixed media. So there's clay, there's brass, there's crystal. A pack of crystal, I believe I got 10 for maybe $5.
Okay.
And the brass pieces aren't expensive. They're maybe 10 for $2 as well.
So altogether, you're looking at probably less than $1 to $1.25 a pair in materials costs.
Probably, yeah.
And how much do you sell them for?
I sell them for 1 for 25, or I have a bundle because everyone loves a deal, 3 for 60.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great markup on that. I mean, that's great profit.
It is.
I mean, granted, you have all your labor time in there, which, is priceless, but that's still a great markup.
Yeah, it is nice.
So when you're putting them out in display, are you just sitting them out? Do you have like cardboard backings that have your logo and stuff on them? What does that element of your display look like?
So I use business cards. Um,
Okay.
Order them from Office Depot, I believe. And the business cards are nice because they have all my information on the back of the card, just like a regular business card. And then the front of the card has my logo on it and the earrings.
Excellent. And that's smart because I'm sure, especially as you're wanting to start launching into more of an online presence, that people will say, I want to buy some for my mom or my sister for the holidays. They can pull that card out and go to it. So I'm a big fan of multi-use packaging materials.
Exactly. Nothing goes to waste.
What does your marketing look like? I know that you're getting a lot of foot traffic. If anyone listening has never been to one of the Chattanooga markets, they're massive. They are
Yeah.
huge markets, especially the Sunday market at the Pavilion downtown. So aside from foot traffic, how are you generating interest? Are you doing content marketing where you're doing a lot of like TikToks and Instagram posts? Are you buying ads? What does your marketing look like right now?
I have not bought ads. I rarely post on Instagram. I'm notoriously terrible at it. I've maybe made like 5 or 6 TikToks. I depend on foot traffic, but my goal this year and really in July is to dive into the world of social media, marketing, promote myself. It is scary, especially, you know, I don't know, as a woman to put yourself out there. I feel like, I'm not old by any means. I'm 30, I'll be 38 this year. But
Hey,
it's
welcome to the club. I'm 38, so
yeah, it's intimidating as a, millennial woman to just dive into marketing and social media. But, I remind myself like it's fine. Everyone's doing it.
yeah.
Fine.
And I think the key is, and what I've been learning and what I'm trying to do more of. So Drew Small is a digital marketing guru who lives in Nashville, and I actually interviewed him for my other podcast called the Book Your Band podcast.
Okay.
And he's worked with everybody from Willie Nelson to United Artists. I mean, name it, he's worked with them. And he always suggests people to follow what he calls the 70-20-10 rule of content marketing on social media. He
Okay.
said 70% of what you put on social media should be about the thing that you do. So if you're making, polymer clay earrings, 70% of your posts should be, hey, here's these new earrings that made, here's how I'm mixing colors,
Okay.
here's the different types of findings that you can use. You're just talking about what you do. 20% should be absolute randomness that just humanizes you.
Okay.
So if you got a puppy dog, videos of your puppy dog doing something funny, or if you're at the beach and you show up and you find out that your Airbnb has been trashed by construction, side note, that's what happened. Post about that because you said those kinds of posts humanize you and show you that you're not just a bot, you're also not just there to sell somebody something.
Right.
The last 10%, he said, should be direct calls to action. Sign up for my mailing list. Follow me online. I'm running a sale. Here's a coupon code for these. He said the problem is so many people that fail with social media marketing and organic, content marketing is they make 90% of their posts, buy my stuff, buy my stuff, buy my stuff. And he said, if you were just walking down the street and somebody ran up into your face and started saying, give me money, give me money, give me money, you're probably going to call the cops on them.
Right.
So that's what he said, and he's helped people literally build social media accounts from 0 followers to right at 1 million followers
Wow.
following that 70-20-10 rule. And the other thing that he stresses is that we have to remember that it used to be when you went into a new locale, you worked the room. Like if you were a musician, you got off stage, you went around, you met people, you worked the room, whatever. He said, we have to remember that social media is now the room.
Right.
And so he puts a ton of emphasis on find 25 to 30 people that you think your ideal customer is going to check out. So that could be other artists, it could be other lifestyle brands. So like you said, you're a millennial woman. What are some places millennial women are going? Or if you know that,
Yep.
for example, right now, if you know that people who come to your stands at these markets are always carrying Stanley Cups with them, start following Stanley Cups.
Yeah.
And then just start showing up. Don't advertise yourself. Just start commenting on what they're doing. And every day, just make a habit of going in, posting, hey, I really like that because, or, oh, this is really neat because. And he said eventually people are going to see you showing up on these lifestyle brands or these adjacent accounts,
Mhm.
and they're going to see you constantly there. And that's going to pique their curiosity without you ever having to tell them once to go check out your stuff.
That's so neat.
So a little impromptu social media coaching there.
No, I need all the help I can get because that is not in my DNA. I do think like something that has helped me though is like as a teacher at the market, we're people.
Yeah.
So talk to anyone. And I do think that that has helped me forge connections and I can sell anything. And I'm selling something that I've made. So it's easy.
Absolutely. As teachers, I think we have this innate ability to tear down people's defensive walls that they put up.
Yeah,
And we know how to be approachable. And especially when you're asking somebody to pull out their wallet and make a purchase, there has to be an element of trust there. And
for
I
sure.
think, by being able to chat people up and show genuine interest in them and talk with them about what we do, it does make it a little bit easier for teachers to launch side hustles.
Yeah. And I think people are willing to open their wallet to teachers because they know that we're underpaid and they want to support us.
Yes, absolutely, because our legislators definitely are not doing that, but that's a whole other episode.
For a whole other episode.
What are some future goals you have? I know that you said that you're wanting to start getting more in the social media. Do you currently have an online store?
I have a website that I've paid for since I think started my business. I just wanted to solidify and have ownership of LambieCakesPlay.com just because,
Yes.
you know how it is.
Yeah,
If
buy that digital real
I
estate as good.
that
I
owner,
was joking with my wife that I'm almost weekly getting like reminders from like GoDaddy or Name.com. It's like such and such domain is set to expire. I'm like, I don't even remember buying that. And she's like, it was probably a business idea that you had, you know,
yeah.
2 years ago. And but yeah, absolutely. Buy that digital real estate as soon as you can. It's cheap enough. Buy it
hmm
and hold on to it.
Yeah. It's $30 a month and it's worth having. So I've had a website. It just hasn't had any kind of online purchasing place to go.
Okay.
So in July, that is my teacher summer mental health goal. That's where I'm going to put my energy into creating my online store. And like an eventual goal is I would love to be big enough or helpful enough or, big enough to be able to give back to the domestic violence world. Like I would love to be able to help organizations financially that are helping women with, domestic abuse. That is my big picture goal.
To do so financially, to do so through workshops, what do you think that looks
Well,
like for you?
look, I'm really open. I mean, financially, I would love to be able to help. Right now, I'm just financially trying to survive. But as a teacher with a side hustle. But I would love to eventually be in a financial place where I can donate like a percentage of each earring sold to survivors or women, getting out of that situation. Because I once was getting out of that situation. I try to talk about it as when I meet people at the market, when people ask me, why is your business called Lambie Cake Play? I try to share the story because, when I was living through that, I didn't know anyone that had been through it. It was all pre-Me Too movement and it was all very hush hush at the time.
Can you tell us a little bit about how the name Lambie Cakes came to be?
Yeah, sure. Well, again, I'm a survivor of domestic abuse and I never thought I would get remarried after what I'd lived through. But then again, I met Ross, my husband. We fell in love and he showed me what it really means to be cared for and loved. And when we started planning our wedding, we had to, of course, talk about cake because that's part of a wedding. And grandmother is a sheep farmer in Wisconsin. And growing up, she had made each of the grandchildren in his family a lamb cake, like those little Easter lamb cakes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So somehow or another, Ross had gotten skipped and never gotten this like coveted lamb cake from his grandmother. So he told me the story one time when we were, talking about cake. And so for a surprise for the wedding, I had his grandmother and his aunt make these lammy cake for his groom to
Aw.
eat at our wedding. And so I decided to name the business Lambie Cake from that memory because lambs represent rebirth. And my relationship with him just made me feel brand new. And I think it just represents like going for what you want in life and not giving up because I really had given up on happiness before I met him. With abuse, and you and I have talked about this, like there are layers to it, right? And that's another reason I do believe that teachers, women, anyone should have the side hustle if you need it. I remember when I was in that situation thinking, as soon as I can pay off my car, I can afford to leave him. Like I can get out, I can be safe, you know? And unfortunately, as teachers, we just aren't compensated well. And the statistics on domestic abuse are just, they're crazy. Like it's something like 1 in 4 women in their lifetime will go through it. And most teachers are women. And when I sit in a faculty meeting or I walk down the hallways of my school, I think about that statistic, 1 in 4, 1 in 4. And I wonder like who else is silently suffering or feels like they can't afford to leave because that we love our kids, right? We choose to stay in the teaching profession because we love children. And although I'm lucky and I got out and everything ended up great for me, I do depend on this side hustle financially. And like I do just wish that teachers were were paid more where I didn't have to do this. But, I do love it. But I just worry about, you know, women out there. And so I do want to eventually be able to get to a place where I can give back and because I know there are women that maybe right now can't have a side hustle because they're not in a safe situation. And that's how I feel about that.
Absolutely. So, Kristen and I had spoken before. My mother is also a survivor of domestic abuse, and
Well,
you don't have financial means to get yourself out of the situation. It's brutal. It
right.
is brutal.
Yeah. Emotionally, physically, it's terrible. But I just want women to hear me that you can get out and that you can be happy and you gotta do what's best for you. There's no need staying in that situation.
What would you say is probably your biggest lessons that you've learned since you started this? Because the way that you started, it seemed very much so like I need to do something full time or else I'm going to go insane. To now being a very thriving, you've shared some numbers with me off the recording, and it's a thriving side hustle. So, throughout that time, what would you say has been probably the biggest lessons that you've learned that you can share that wisdom with other teachers who are wanting to launch side hustles that you may, allow them to learn from your experiences so they don't have to experience it on their own?
Man, this makes me feel a little bit like that Kim Kardashian clip where she's like, "You've got to get up and work. Women want and need to work." Like, it's like no one's going to come save you. Like you have to cut. Like if you're in a situation, like you need to save yourself. If you feel like there's something that you could do to help yourself, help yourself. Like just how can I say that nicer? Like there's no use feeling sorry for yourself if you can do something about it. I guess. That sounds harsh. Does that mean? It's just
I don't think so. I think sometimes we need to hear that because it's easy for us to generate ideas, but then come up with excuses as to why to not implement those ideas.
yeah,
Whether it be I don't have time to do it or imposter syndrome. Because I'm sure with you, that first day at the market, you're probably like, there are people here that have been making earrings and jewelry since I was in Pampers.
right,
And
100%.
so that imposter syndrome kicks in, and it's very true. Sometimes you just have to be willing to do those scary things and just get off your couch and do them to move from idea to implementation because ideas don't pay your bills.
Right, right. Yeah. I mean, it is ideas don't pay your bills. I would 100% agree with that. You have to put the time in. It is hard. It's hard work. Like I have trouble with boundaries sometimes. Like my husband has to come and tell me, "Honey, like put down the pliers. Like we need to be husband and wife, like we need to spend time with each other because it is all encompassing. When you can make $1,000 on a Sunday, like I want to do that. But it does require a lot of my time. So I don't have children. I do tell people when people ask me, how do you do this? How do you do this? I tell people honestly, I can do this because I don't have children. I'm not making lunches. I'm not, taking kids to ball practice. I'm here at home after school, honestly, just doing it.
All right. Well, I sincerely appreciate, again, your time. Thank you so much for being vulnerable and being willing to share your story and for sharing a little bit of wisdom and experience with other teachers who are on the fence. Maybe they themselves like making jewelry and they see that it can be a very viable side hustle.
Yeah,
If,
people will want
if
to buy from you. They want to help teachers. You guys are so creative. Teachers are so creative. Like, you guys can make your classrooms look like beautiful,
like
amazing.
Pinterest just threw
Yeah,
up all over it.
exactly. And you do it with no money. Like, spend a little money on yourself, make some jewelry, and people will buy it for sure.
Yeah, one of the taglines of this podcast is that people want to give you money. It's your job to find a reason for them to do so.
Exactly.
So if people want to learn more about Lambie Cakes, where can they find you online? Where can they track you down to see what you're doing and hopefully in the future buy some from you?
Yeah. My Instagram is at Lambie Cakes Clay. My website is lambiecakesclay.com. And I'm on Facebook as well, Lambie Cakes Clay. That's me.
Awesome. I'll be sure to get all of those linked up in the show notes for this episode. Kristen, thanks so much for being here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. We'll see you next time and hopefully we'll see you at a market soon.
Sounds good.
For more resources and support, be sure to visit www.afterschoolempire.com and sign up for my mailing list. I promise not to spam you, and you'll be the first to know about new side hustle resources that are available from After School Empire. Until next time, remember, people want to give you money. You just have to find a reason for them to do so.